Hey, somebody's got to wish Elvis Presley a happy birthday today. He's dead? That's what you think. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
Nip it in the bud.
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to create measurable results for people like you and families like yours.
Oh, you should never doubt what nobody is sure about.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. Our topics run the gamut here from A to at least W. Therefore, we will field questions about business, spiritual issues, popular culture, and whether or not the shovel was actually a groundbreaking invention. My purpose here today, and with every show we do, is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by itam.org. That's IAITAM.org. Hey, do you know what an IT asset manager is? Not a lot of people do. It's a relatively new professional position that corporations are clamoring for. They're needing IT asset managers more than ever. A number of years ago, Dr. Barb Rimbiesa created a curriculum to train people to manage the assets of the IT department of corporations. And you think, well, what needs to be managed? Look, when they are licensing software and this software is here and that software is over there, and there's so many different kinds of software running through this corporation, and there is so many opportunities to break the law by copying it or using it with somebody. Companies that have gone through jillion-dollar lawsuits have absolutely said, we need somebody to keep us in compliance. And so these are kind of compliance people, IT asset managers. And this has become one of the hottest jobs in the job market in America today. And you know what? You can only be certified in one place. If you're thinking, hey, I would like to do something new, get on IAITAM.org and look at the possibilities there on becoming an IT asset manager. The certification courses were designed to establish this professional development path for IT people, and it has several related occupations, and these people, they make great salaries. ITAM courses have been accepted around the globe. This is the industry benchmark around the globe. And I would urge you to go on itam.org and look at the client list. Look at the companies that are using IT asset managers that have been certified by ITAM. You will be shocked. It's like NASA, Sony, Google, Facebook. It's just unbelievable. But these certifications increase the potential earnings of a person, obviously. And in fact, ITAM certified IT personnel show a measurable return on investment for these corporations. So this is a huge, huge thing. I urge you to check it out at IAITAM.org. You wonder what you want to be? You might want to be an IT asset manager. Observations and answers. That's what we do here. I'm Andy Andrews, the Professional Noticer. We're harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Now, I deliver these observations. You provide the questions, and questions are a critical component of the person that you and I aspire to become. And we need your questions. You have something going on in your life, you have something going on in your family, your business, please send us your questions or call and just leave the question there on the tape recorder. Matt, we have a tape recorder. Is it a tape recorder? Is that what it is? We probably don't have tape recorders anymore, do we? I'm still stuck in the Mission Impossible thing where the guy's in the phone booth with the tape that self-destructs in 6 seconds. And I'm still with that old blonde-headed guy, not Tom Cruise. But somebody can call. What's the number? 1-800-726
Andy.
A-N-D-Y. How about that? What a coincidence that we would get a number that would spell that. I mean, so just 1-800-726-ANDY. Leave your questions or email us at, what do they email us at?
The Professional Noticer.
The Professional Noticer.
At
AndyAndrews.com. AndyAndrews.com? Wow. Another coincidence. Yeah. Amazing. But we do need your questions. Nobody should be embarrassed to ask a question. Because the person who never asks a question, they either know everything or they don't know anything. Just remember, the quality of your answers can only be determined by the quality of your questions. This week we have a question from Jill. She's from the Midwest. Let's listen.
Hi, Andy. This is Jill from the Midwest. This is a long explanation. I met my significant other almost 2 years ago. His oldest son died in combat in Afghanistan, and his other 2 sons are also in the service. They're both married and have children. One of his sons has not spoken to his father for 3 years. The other was talking to him quite often until about a month ago. Something was said, he's not even sure what, and now his youngest son is not talking to him. His ex will also not talk to him. Here's the immediate issue. There's a special event coming up at Arlington National Cemetery where our nation's military men and women who are buried there will be honored. The president's also attending. He received a call today from his daughter-in-law saying that to avoid any discomfort, he should not be there. Meanwhile, his 2 sons, their families, and his ex-wife will be there. And his daughter-in-law asked if he would please just avoid the whole area while the ceremony is being held. He is so upset, and of course is going anyway. I'm also going. We're driving almost 1,000 miles to be there especially for this. This is his son, too. My question is, what do you think? Should he go? Should I go? Or should I not go? Thanks for taking this question. Obviously, this has been very stressful. Thanks, Andy.
Wow. I hear this, and I'm so sorry. This just hurts in the marrow of my bones. Because I try to imagine being estranged from my sons. And so I know that is tough on you. That is just really just horrifically tough on your significant other. And the sons probably at this point don't even know how tough it is on them and their families. And at this point, they probably, you mentioned that his 2 sons and their families will be there. So, these 2 sons probably are not even aware of the pathway they are clearing for their own children to do this one day with their dad. Obviously, I don't know what has happened. I don't know what occurred. I don't know what created the divorce. Obviously, if he and his ex-wife are not talking, if his ex-wife's not speaking to him, somehow she has probably gained the upper hand in the battle for the loyalty, or however that's done in those situations right now. They probably feel like he was wrong. I'm not saying he was, because I subscribe to what King Solomon wrote a number of years ago when he wrote, and a number would be about 3,000 years. But King Solomon wrote, every person and what they say sounds right and true until you hear the other side. And wow, have I ever found that to be the case. And so you just be aware as you're helping him that is the case for him. There's another side to the story he is telling, but that's also the case for them. There is another side than the narrative they have chosen to believe at this point. An old man told me one time, he said, "Son, there is your side and there's my side. And the truth is probably somewhere near the middle." I always thought that was funny because it was it seemed so incredibly accurate to me. To get down to the specific, the question, let me just answer the question you asked at the end, and then I'd like to comment on this and tell you where I think that you guys can go, all right? You are asking me, you're saying my question is, what do you think? Should he go? Should I go? Should I not go? That's your question. You told me the other stuff, and then you said, and that was your question. And so here's what I think. Yeah, he should go. And I also think, yeah, you should go. It's going to be tough enough for him with his son having given his life for our country, and your significant other, this is the dad who gave, he certainly feels like he gave his son for this country. And yes, he should be there. And yes, if you love him, you should be with him. I mean, it's a long trip. Good grief. That's a long way to go, a long way to drive, a long way to be in the car and thinking. And so, yes, you definitely should go. Now, let me tell you, I think why he should go, why you should go, are probably pretty obvious. But let me tell you something else. This is a major event at Arlington National Cemetery. The president is going to be there. It's a little ridiculous, in my opinion, for his daughter-in-law to say, hey, just, avoid the whole area while the ceremony is being held. All right, it's ridiculous for somebody to say, hey, don't be there. Number one, it's ridiculous because this was his son too. All right. But the other reason that it's really kind of ridiculous to say that is there's going to be 20,000 people there. The odds of you guys even running into them or even catching their faces across the crowd, they are infinitesimal. I mean, this is a national event. There may be 50,000 people there. And my point is, unless you go in there with a bullhorn yelling their names, you're not even likely to see them. They're not likely to know whether you're there or not. And, if they're there to honor their brother and her son, and all they're doing is scanning the crowd, looking for him, shame on them. Okay, that's not where their minds and hearts and thoughts should be anyway. And so, but the same goes for you guys, okay? It's not where your minds and hearts and thoughts should be either. So don't be, scanning and looking and ready for trouble or anything like that. And if you do happen to run into them, you don't even got to say anything, okay? Just a respectful smile, a nod, and move on, okay? Because if you do see them, it will not be close. It'll be 40 feet away or something like that, and you can just smile and nod. Don't jerk your head away. But I don't even think you're going to run into them. All right, now, let's move past this because I want to talk about a bigger picture with you for this family. And you are a part of this, okay? And you're the one that I'm talking to. You're the one who asked the question. And so I think you're the one that will have to gently and very tactfully direct what I'm about to tell you. And I don't necessarily think that you should tell everybody Well, Andy says, or, you don't need to be sending them a link to the podcast. Good grief, Matt. As bad as I want people to listen to the podcast, can you believe that I actually just tell somebody not to send somebody a link? But anyway, Jill, don't send them the link to the podcast, all right? I want you to be very wise with the information I'm about to give you and use it correctly. This family is in a crisis and headed for a cliff. Now, most of them think that staying away from each other is going to be the best way to handle this. Just not talking to them the rest of their life. Just cut them out of their life. But as I said before, these sons have families, and this mom, this ex-wife, she has grandchildren that they are literally laying out a template for how these kids are going to live their lives and deal with conflict with their parents. I mean, they're just teaching them how to do it. You know the old saying, what goes around comes around? Well, I think it was said about this. Because this is a really, really serious situation. Allowing things like this to continue, it resonates through our society, resonates through our culture. Because as those boys, those young men, his sons, and their families, and the ex-wife, and no offense, but you and the dad, we all talk about this to other people, this becomes, a way that it's done. This is how something's handled. And let me just tell you, there are, I think I have this right, there are 4 stages of cancer. There's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 is the really, really bad one. Okay, but people come back from stage 4 cancer. And if I had to say, because there's definitely a cancer in this family. Okay, there's definitely a cancer. And if I had to say where this family is at this moment, I hope it's a 2, but it may be a 3. I don't think it's a 4. I definitely don't think it's terminal. But it is at least a 2. It is at least a stage 2 cancer and possibly stage 3. There is only one way I have found to solve this. There's only one. I mean, in real cancer, there seems to be a lot of different options, especially now. It's not just radiation anymore. It's not just chemotherapy anymore, or proton therapy, or there's a lot of different options people have. But with this kind of cancer, with a relationship cancer, with offended people, with people who are so offended that they will not talk and will not be in the same room anymore and are going out of their way to make phone calls and have conversations to make sure they're not even in the same group of 50,000 people. There are not a lot of options here. There's only one, and it's a very personal option because there's nothing your significant other is going to be able to do over the phone. And there's nothing that the ex-wife is going to be able to do by driving to wherever you guys are at this point. I mean, there's, I guess, a better likelihood of that than solving it over the phone, because ultimately there will be a conversation if this is going to be solved. But I think it can be solved in great part without a conversation, because somewhere along the way, everybody has to come to an awareness of the danger that they are placing these children in, the children, the grandchildren? It's not just their lives. I mean, do you want the best for these children? Sure you do. Well, do you want them to live? I mean, what did you say? Obviously, this has become very stressful. Well, that was a nice way to say it. But I got news for you. It became stressful a long time ago. And I know you know that. I'm just kind of being a smart aleck here because I know that you have lived with the stress of this just like they have. So this hasn't just become stressful. This has been stressful for a long time. Is that what everybody wants for these children? Because I'm assuming that the sons are like young adults. I mean, to have that kind of relationship as a young adult, man, that's tough. And I guarantee you, it affects their professional lives. This affects your significant other's professional life. I don't know what his professional life is, and I'm assuming that the two sons are, they have a professional life. They have a career of some kind. Well, I'll tell you something. This affects it. This affects their earning power. I'm not just saying it affects their every now and then they think about it. I'm telling you, it affects their earning power. It affects their influence. You know why? Because they're bitter. They have this bitterness going on. They have an unforgiving spirit. And an unforgiving spirit is this spirit of bitterness. And I know people think, nobody really knows what's going on. Yeah, I know. I know they don't know what's going on, but don't think they don't know something's going on. You would not believe how many people that I have counseled through the years that have had issues like this, relationship issues, anger with the relationships, just like offense with the relationships. You would not believe how many people through the years that had no idea that this was the reason for their, I guess, lack of professional advancement to the thought that they expected, or to the to their level of professional success that they expected. And in fact, most of the time, most of these people that I have talked to, most of these people that I've counseled, I was brought in because of a lack of professional success. I wasn't brought in because they were having problems with their family. I was brought in because they couldn't swing the golf club anymore. I was brought in because they couldn't kick it through the uprights anymore. I was brought in because all of a sudden their effectiveness in the boardroom was not there. That I was brought in because, as great a people as they were, they just weren't. They weren't making the sales. They weren't making the professional advancement. They weren't making the connections. They weren't making, that's why I was brought in. Nobody ever brought, in fact, you might be the first person to ever say, hey, look, here's what's going on. Because I have just learned through the years to sit down with these people and get to that point, because more often than not, there's something going on that's taking their performance away. A person who can kick the ball through the uprights, from 40 yards, they don't just suddenly forget how to kick an extra point. Somebody who can swing a golf club like some of these PGA professionals can swing, well, like all these PGA professionals can swing golf, they don't just like all of a sudden forget how to do it. There's something going on. And the same is true for these sons. The same is true for your significant other, for that ex-wife, if she works. In fact, the same is true for you, because you're thinking about it a lot. And as I talk to people who, not just golfers or football players or anything like that, I'm just talking about just ordinary people like you and me, as I talk to them and I hear them say, yeah, I'm just having a hard time with this or that, or it is amazing to see that they don't understand that while other people might not know exactly what's going on, and sometimes might not even know something is going on, there's just a feeling. It's just like dogs can sense fear in people. People can sense bitterness in other people. Now, I'm telling you, they don't always know what they're sensing. They don't always know what is that. They don't always know what it is. But I'll tell you this, they don't do business with it. They don't date it again. They don't stay married to it forever. They don't continue to employ it. Bitterness can destroy more than just those precious children. And the one cure is forgiveness. That's the one cure. Now, with this situation, this is just the perfect situation for how forgiveness actually works, because for a long time I thought forgiveness was like some knighthood I would bestow upon somebody that came dragging their sorry butt into my presence, crying and begging me to forgive them. That, I always kind of thought, well, maybe I would if I felt like it, if I thought they deserved it. But 30 years, 35 years of researching forgiveness and thinking about it and praying about it and working with it, I cannot find a single book or a single expert to tell me for one person to forgive another person that person has to actually deserve it. For one person, I can't find a single book or a single expert, including the Bible, to tell me for one person to forgive another person, that person has to deserve it or ask for it or even be aware that it's happening. Now, I'm not talking about forgiveness as a spiritual touchstone in this particular case. I'm talking about what is it that we have the power to do? Have you ever lain awake at night, everybody else is asleep, and you just kind of can't get sleep because you're thinking about that guy. In this case, you're thinking about that ex-wife, and I can't believe she's turned these sons, these whole families against him. He's thinking about the sons. He might probably think about the ex-wife too. But the ex-wife is thinking about him. The sons are thinking about him. The sons are, the kids are probably thinking about him. They don't even know why they're thinking about him. But the wives of the sons, they're thinking about him. Everybody's thinking about him, and nobody's able to function. But have you ever had that happen? You're laying awake, you think about that guy and what he said and what you said and what you would have said if you'd have had a minute to think about it, and what you will say tomorrow when he walks around the corner, and you'll have him right there and you'll tell him just and you can't get to sleep. You're thinking all that. And let me tell you something. That guy that you're so bent out of shape at, he's across town sleeping peacefully, unaware that you're even awake or in the world probably. So at that point, whose life is it ruining? I'm just saying that we have the ability to choose. We can choose. See, it turns out forgiveness is a decision. It's not an emotion. We treat it like an emotion, which is why situations like this drag us around like a dog on a leash. We feel like we have no control. Is because we treat forgiveness like it is an emotion. It's not. It's a decision. You can decide to forgive. Sometimes I talk about this and people say, oh, what? So they're just going to get away with it? Look, nobody's getting away with anything. Not in this life or the next one. Nobody's getting away with anything. And I'm not talking about getting away with anything. And we're talking here, forgiveness is about the past. Trust is about the future. Nobody's getting away with anything. Don't confuse forgiveness with trust. Forgiveness is about the past. Trust is about the future. Forgiveness is about us. Trust is about them. Okay, nobody's getting away with anything. Do you forgive somebody who steals from you? Yes. Because forgiveness is about you. It's about you being able to get a good night's sleep. It's about you being able to become the person that you were created to be, to fulfill your potential. Do you forgive somebody who steals from you? Yes. Do you continue to do business with them? Probably not. Do you forgive somebody who lies to you? Yes. Do you continue to believe everything they say? No. Forgiveness is about doing away with the past. Trust is about the future. Trust and respect are a lot alike. Neither are permanent. Both have to be earned. But you can forgive. Now, I would imagine there's a lot of forgiveness that needs to be done here, including forgiving ourselves. Because I guarantee you, situations like this do not happen with all the fault on one side. There are things that have been said. There are things that have been done. And so, your significant other, my suggestion is that he forgive. Now, I'm not saying you call him up and say, hey, just wanted to tell you, I forgive you. That's not going to work, okay? Hey, if somebody did that to me, I'd go, oh, really? Well, good for you. You don't do that. That's a personal thing. You are forgiving. And see, this bitterness, this these grudges, it's like drinking poison that you intend for somebody else. It's going to kill you, not them. Remember, they don't even know you're lying awake thinking about them. And so forgiveness is about you. So you forgive. But I also say there are things that have been done, things have been said. You need to forgive yourself. Now, that's another thing I wouldn't tell them. They can come to that conclusion. They can, listen to a tape of me sometime or something. I don't know how that would happen. But let me tell you this. Let me tell you a situation you need, and then we're through. Just know I could talk about this for hours and not repeat a lot of stuff because I've had so many times that I have dealt with this and found that this affects people in just horribly dramatic ways. But let me tell you a situation that I just want to plant that maybe somehow you can create. If you've listened to this podcast much, I don't often say, hey, just make sure this week and make sure to read another one of my books. This week, the book I'd like you to read The Noticer. This week, I'd like you to read The Lost Choice. This week, I don't do that, okay? But I am going to tell you a book I want you to read of mine. And it's actually my favorite book that I ever wrote, and it's called The Heart Mender. The Heart Mender. It's my favorite book because it is the best story. Now, that's all I'll tell you. It's just a killer story. But the undercurrent through the whole book is forgiveness. It is the story about it actually spans several decades, and it's the story of of the time when German U-boats were actually in the Gulf of Mexico sinking American ships. And on one of these U-boats, there's a German officer who considers himself a German, not a Nazi. And he is betrayed by the political officer when they're inshore one night being gassed up by a spy. And he gets betrayed. He's shot overboard. He's only wounded, but he makes his way to shore, almost dead, found by an American war widow who is attempting to save him when she notices the uniform. Well, her husband was killed by the Germans, and she just about kills him with her bare hands. And that's all you need to know at this point. But the story is about how they hide in 1942, how she hides him in 1942 America, small town America, why she decides to hide him instead of killing him and turning him in, what happens because of it, ultimately. And the whole thing is wrapped in a message of forgiveness on a bunch of different fronts. If there is some way that you and he could maybe listen to that driving, it's on Audible, or you can get the CDs, or you can get the book and read it to him or give him the book. But at some point, I would urge you just to look for a way. Now, it doesn't need to come from you. It doesn't need to come from him, but some cousin 5 times removed or something. Those sons, those daughters-in-law need to read this book, The Heart Mender. That ex-wife needs to read this book. Now, I'm telling you that because not only have I seen this book perform miracles. I was not too long ago at an event, and I was just a guest, and there were round tables, and I'm sitting, I don't know, 2/3 of the way to the back. There's probably 2,000 or 3,000 people there. And at some point, whoever it was up there at the front, emceeing the event, he says, hey, we have here tonight author Andy Andrews, and Andy's with us, and we just wanted to say thanks to Andy for being here. Andy Andrews, legend. And of course, people clap, and I'm kind of embarrassed, and I don't stand up or anything. I just kind of, wave. But when I do, there's this old man. I say old. He's not that old anymore, probably 76, 77. And he is at the table I'm at, and he kind of leans over and he whispers, he says, "You're Andy Andrews, the author?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "We need to talk to you just for a minute when this is over." I said, "Okay." I didn't know who we was, but afterwards, I met him, shook hands with him. His son was there with him. This man's like 76, 77. His son looked like he was about 50, and met his son. And the older gentleman said to me, he said, "You wrote the book, The Heart Mender, right?" I said, "I did." He said, "Somebody gave me that book, and around the same time, somebody else gave that book to my son. And we read that book around the same time. And we had not spoken to each other in 11 years. And now we have solved that. We're past that. Our family's in a great place." Man, I almost cried on the spot. But Jill, you got to get that book. Okay? I don't often tell people that about my books, but I think you want to get this book, The Heart Mender. Let's let that be this week's Book of the Week. Thank you, Jill. And this will work out, okay? But work is going to be the operative word here, because for this to work out, there is going to be some work involved. But it is going to work out. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk, okay? Shake hands with the kids you meet. And make sure you haven't answered the question, does ignoring all the rules violate any rules? And so, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limbert. The Noticer theme, written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Flu shots, provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by the Old Cartoon Association of America. The OCAA is a nonprofit organization dedicated to showing the children of today what a real cartoon actually is. Annual meetings are held around the country and often provide activities for members such as wabbit hunting, mountain cliff anvil dropping, and Tasmanian devil impression contest. Breakout sessions, learning activities for the less active include putty tat identification, whether or not you actually saw a putty tat, understanding the difference in a chicken and a chicken hawk, son, and how to outwit stupid dogs. That's the Old Cartoon Association of America. There's a local chapter near you.
That's all, folks.